Burnout is considered a response by a young athlete to chronic stress in which he or she ceases to participate in a previously enjoyed activity. In other words, withdrawing from a sport because they perceive it is not possible to meet the physical or psychological demands of that sport. Before we determine ways to prevent youth athlete burnout, we must understand what burnout is and how it is caused. First off, what is a burnout? A burnout is defined by sports psychologists as physical or emotional exhaustion, sport devaluation, and reduced athletic accomplishment. The first dimension of burnout is the physical and emotional exhaustion, which is characterized by the feelings of emotional and physical fatigue stemmed from psychosocial and physical demands associated with training and competing. The second dimension is sport devaluation, which is a negative detached attitude from sport reflected by lack of concern about sport and performance. The final dimension is the reduced athletic accomplishment, which is characterized by the feeling of inefficacy and a tendency to evaluate oneself negatively in terms of sport performance and accomplishment. So how are burnouts caused? Perceived coaching styles along with training climate have been found to be good predictors of athlete burnout. These factors have resulted in youth athletes having low self-esteem, worries about failure, worries about parental expectations, increased anxiety, all of which could lead to a dropout from the sport. Now that we know what burnout is and how it's caused, the next question is, how do we prevent it? The simplest things that we can do include taking breaks, not overdoing practice, as we all know that to excel at something, it takes practice. So it would seem like the more hours of practice, the better when it comes to sport, which is true to a certain extent. Varying the sport and activity. Playing the same sport year-round can lead to stress injuries and burnout. It also tends to make exercise more about performance in a particular sport rather than for the enjoyment of that sport. Finally, keeping the right attitude during training can prevent athletes from leaving the sport. What does the research suggest? Through self-determination theory, which suggests that there are three basic factors that, when authentically fulfilled, facilitate the internalization of behavioral regulation. In other words, there are three factors that can increase one's intrinsic motivation. A study conducted by Isoard-Gautheur and colleagues used this model to look at elite adolescent handball players. Results of the study suggest that controlling coaching style dictates the level of self-determination demonstrated by the athletes. It was stated that the satisfaction of the three basic psychological needs and self-determined form of motivation might lead to adolescent handball elite training centers to lower risk of burnout. Another study conducted by Isoard-Gautheur used the achievement goal theory model. This theory of motivation focuses on differences in how individuals evaluate competence and define success and failure. Achievement goal theory has two divisions. The first division is task goal orientation and the second division is ego goal orientation. Task goal orientation involves reference of one's own past performance or knowledge as the origin of competence feeling. For those demonstrating task goal orientation, sport is perceived as providing opportunity for personal growth and mastery, the belief that success emanates from hard work, learning, and collaboration. Ego goal orientation, on the other hand, is based on comparison with others and has been associated with the belief that sport provides opportunity for gaining social status, wealth, and that success emanates from outperforming others. This study also looked at handball players and stated that young talented athletes perceiving an ego-involved climate and emphasizing mastery avoidance goals at the beginning of the season had a higher risk of experiencing burnout symptoms at the season's end. It also stated that players perceiving high task involving climate and emphasizing mastery approach goals at the beginning of the season had a lower burnout score when the season concluded. What this means is that athletes from a high task involving or task goal oriented climate tend to have a lower burnout score than those from ego oriented climates. Another research study was done that used both self-determination theory and achievement goal theory and was conducted by Jõesaar and colleagues. This study looked at young athletes in a variety of sports. It was stated that the value of previous autonomy support from the coach in affecting later tasks involving peer climate, and that both motivational components from self-determination theory can enhance athletes' intrinsic motivation towards sport participation. What this means is that having the right coach and the right environment for the athletes can potentially increase their intrinsic motivation and thus keep them in the sport. So what does this all mean? For coaches, this means that adjusting training volume, encouraging mastery, and giving athletes some control may help athletes perceive competence and intrinsic motivation. For athletes, in order to lower the risk of burnout, it is important to find the right coach, focus on personal improvement, and of course, have fun.